Never fear of missing out by clicking that subscribe button and becoming another member of the Babylonian family. Let it go, can't hold it back anymore. And hopefully your enemies will be just as frozen as that film. And I'm sorry, I thought I'd try another singing skit, just because the first ones went down so well. But as always, first, Babylon is now partnered with Raffled Up, the one-stop shop to have the chance at scoring yourself some great tech at a low price. Raffled Up has made over 1,800 people happy with their competitions, ranging from store credit, GPUs, VR sets, and even full-on PC rigs to take your game into the next level. Keep your eye out for mega bundle competitions too for your chance to win several £1,000s worth of gear, all for less than the cost of a chippy. If you fancy your chances, make sure to use our partner code in the description below and save yourself some money while also supporting us as a channel. Best of luck and enjoy the content. Now, if you'd love me to do another rendition of a famous Frozen song, feel free to leave that in the comments. But also, in the same respect, if you don't want that, then please also let me know of that as well, so I know to stop doing these kind of things. Welcome back, Babylonians. My name is Songs of Rays, and we're back with another legendary guide to bring to you. And today we're looking at the Iceberg bolt-action sniper rifle. That is a legendary variant. Now, this struck me as interesting because this is one of the first legendaries that I got when the demo came out, and I was fascinated by how the mod actually really worked and how well it was going. And I knew as soon as I picked this up and I used it for the first couple of times just to see that frozen effect, that this was going to be one I was going to keep my eyes on, and that all the legendaries coming forward were going to be amazing. Now, obviously, aesthetically, this is very, very pleasing when it comes to look how frozen this gun actually is, as you would have seen from the gun spinning around. But you're not here for me to talk about how nice the gun looks. You're here to hear the actual stats and how effective this can actually be. So, what makes it good? Well, obviously, it has a tier 3 mod, and this one is Winter's Blast. Critical shots create an icy blast that inflict freeze on enemies within a 4-meter radius, and this refreshes every single second. Now, it does come already paired with a tier 2 mod, which kind of complements it really nicely. On killing shots against frozen enemies, will make them explode, dealing 13,234 damage, and that also refreshes every single second. So the main gist of this gun is that you hit a critical shot, you've frozen that enemy along with anyone else that's within a very small 4-meter radius, obviously 8-meter diameter from left to right, and then the icebreaker then kicks in, and any killing shots on enemies you're then detonating for enemies that are also nearby are taking that splash damage, and then ideally it should be kind of wiping out a group of mobs, which is great. Obviously that's something you want, and the only thing that comes really close to that is a tier 3 mod that comes with the Borealis set for the Technomancer, which allows on cold snap to be able to detonate bodies, and that does it for a little bit more damage, but it also seems a bit easier to get the bodies to chain rather than icebreaker, but I don't know if that's just because of it having a slightly lower damage. Now, other stats to keep in mind: it has a clip size of 5, so that's kind of on the low end, so you do kind of want to find, if you are going for a firepower build, which I highly recommend to go with this gun, you can increase that by 50%, especially on a Technomancer. The rounds per minute is 75, which is very slow, but obviously this is a bolt-action sniper rifle. The damage is huge on 20,510, and this is a 78,000 firepower variant, which is very low, and you can definitely get some much higher ones. The reload is very punishing if you do have to need to, which is at 2.2 seconds. The crit multiplier is a nice 250%. Now, in terms of mods or what I would do to change this gun, it does seem to be geared for crit damage. Obviously, the tier 3 mod is geared towards crit damage. It rolls with an additional crit damage on top of it, along with long range damage and status power, and the 250% crit multiplier is huge. So Embalmer's Rage would actually fit really nicely onto this gun, not only for the fact that obviously it's benefiting from the additional damage, but also from the fact that it's helping you to trigger that tier 3 mod of just basically icy blasting everywhere. Now, with this being a 1-second cooldown, the gun does fire slightly faster than one bullet per second, so it won't trigger every single time, but essentially just think of it as almost every single bullet that you will be firing out of this with Embalmer's Rage procced will be essentially one big massive freeze for a bunch of enemies that are nearby. Now, although I absolutely love this gun, I did find it very difficult to be able to run a solo expedition and be able to do well with it, and that's purely based on the fact that there are enemies that are designed to be able to rush you, and you currently pull all the aggro to you. Now, the gun itself is solid. You will be able to easily take out, obviously with the right build, you'll be able to take out mobs, and you'll be able to take out elites, because the damage is just so high. And as a Technomancer, which is the class that I would recommend to use this, they can benefit from the frozen status so much that Middle Tree helps with the frozen itself and helps inflict additional things on top of being frozen, but also there are a tier 2 mod and a tier 3 mod that increases frozen damage by 15 and 25%. Now the 25% I believe is only for the Technomancer, but obviously every class can take the 15. So I do think this specializes more into a Technomancer, because obviously it's got long range damage and obviously it has the freeze. So any other class, they can still get away with this, and it would probably be a nice alternative as like a backup weapon, just as like a utility more than anything. But I did find that the tier 3 mod is probably what makes this so good, and it definitely belongs on other kind of weapons. Now I have taken this and put it on obviously a few of the legendary guides which you've seen before, but also what I do, the Absolute Zero is quite a fun one to use this with, because you can freeze an enemy just standard, and then you can pummel their critical shots to be able to freeze everyone that's nearby, and I found that's a really nice like ultimate freezing gun. But it really does benefit from pretty much like any kind of gun can really benefit from that, especially if you are playing as a Technomancer that is then specialised into freeze. All in all, the Iceberg has a very special place in my heart for the gun and the mod that it actually is. Now, unfortunately, the gun itself is very difficult to use in a solo kind of environment, and even then it would probably only be pretty good if you had maybe a Devastator that's able to use their reflect bullets skill to be able to give you some kind of pseudo cover, I guess. But the mod itself is pretty solid, and obviously there are ways to be able to increase your damage to frozen targets, so it's definitely a really good crowd control, and it works really well on elites as well, to be able to give yourself a little bit of breathing room just in case you do find yourself struggling a little bit. But yeah, is it top tier? Not quite. I do think it's a little bit away from it. I think it's just on the outside, but I think that's down to the fact that it doesn't increase damage just by itself. If you were able to pair this on a firepower techno build and spec purely into freeze, then you may have some kind of argument for it, but then you've got to argue with the fact that you've then not taken Killing Spree or Dark Sacrifice in place for it. So it's definitely worth an experiment. That's all I'll say on that. So that brings us to the end of the Iceberg episode. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've loved the gameplay that's in the background. I had a bit of difficulty getting it for you, but I did manage to get that expedition complete in the end. So if you've learned something useful, please drop us a like and subscribe as always, and feel free to drop a comment to let us know when you've done that, because we will greatly appreciate it, and obviously I will then have a chat with you just to say thank you, and thank you personally for stopping by and supporting the channel. As always, keep yourself safe, keep yourself well, and I shall see you on that next episode.